students, so welcome to this presentation on exchange rate fluctuations and balance of payments theory. When we study international economics, we can divide the subject into two. The first part of international economics looks into the trade related theories, and the second part of international economics relates to international finance. Now, the earlier videos have explained in detail the various theories and the concepts relating to trade between nations. We know that when trade takes place between two countries, the transaction is final only when payments are made. We have also seen that payments cannot be made in the domestic currency. The payment has to be made in the exporter's currency. So that throws open the subject of foreign exchange. Now, what is foreign exchange rate? Foreign exchange rate is the rate at which one currency is converted or convertible into another currency. A quick revision about balance of payment. Balance of payment is a statistical summary of the trade relations between two countries. It accounts for the trade in goods and trade in services, plus the flows of capital between countries. So countries can have a credit account in the balance of payment and a debit account. Now, when we talk about credit, we are essentially talking about the exports that have been made from the country to another country and for which payments are due to this economy. The second one is the debit account, where we look into how the country has imported goods from other countries, has allowed inflow of capital from other countries, and therefore we have to make payments to other countries. So this is the debit and credit accounts in the balance of payment. There is essentially inflow of currencies and outflow of currencies. We also understand that the balance of payment can show deficit or surplus. If the imports are greater than the exports that the country has made, then we would say that the country experiences a deficit in the balance of payment. And if the country has exported more and imported less, then the country experiences surplus in the balance of payment. Now, these two concepts are necessary because they are used in explaining the exchange rate determination. Now, when a country experiences a deficit in the current account means the trade in goods and services in the current period, then the country is spending more on imports than it is earning. When the country has got a deficit in the capital account, it means that the country is importing more capital from abroad or borrowing more capital from foreign sources. Now, this being the case, let us see how we can explain it in terms of foreign currency. The Indian rupee is currently in the news because the value of Indian rupee has been depreciating. So I thought this graph can show you how the Indian rupee vis-a-vis dollar has been moving in the period May 21 to May 22. So you can see the ups and downs that happen in the currency value between two currencies, which is quite normal to understand in international payment, for the simple reason that balance of trade and balance of payment are never in balance, and there will always be an excess demand or an excess supply of the currency in the forex market. The problem comes up when there is a persistent deficit in the balance of payment, which can cause the currency value to depreciate very low. So you can see how the rupee has behaved from May 21. The blue line is at a much lower level, and you can see how the the curve has been moving up, and towards the right extreme you can see that it has reached its peak of 77.623 rupees. Now, this, do not think that 77 rupees per dollar is a good thing. It is just the reverse. It is not good for India when the dollar cost 77.63 rupees. It has come down today to 77.5, and this up and down in currency is something that happens on a regular basis. We need to know what are those factors that can influence the exchange rate. There are a series of factors that can influence exchange rate, and it is one of the most watched, monitored, and analyzed economic indicator in macroeconomics, or the open economy indicator. It tells us how these currencies have been moving, and governments take appropriate steps when there is a continuous movement in the exchange rate. And how does the next question that comes into us is, how does this exchange rate affect our day-to-day lives? Most of us do not have to handle foreign exchange rate on a day-to-day basis because we are using only the domestic currency. But look at this example where a young student has to go abroad for her studies, assuming that she has to pay her fees, or she might have paid her fees, and now what is pending for her is to get ready with the living expenses to that country. Now suddenly she would find that the living expenses have cost much more than what it cost earlier. In that particular case, the exchange rate movement has influenced her decision about choosing to go to other country to study this year, or postpone it to this next year, or whatever. So these kind of decisions, whether the commodity should be produced for export more because the exchange rate is more, these kind of questions that keep coming up, and therefore the study of foreign exchange rate becomes very important. It influences the macroeconomics of the country as well, and there are a variety of factors that influence this exchange rate. It could be the import and export of the country, it could be how the macroeconomics of the country is doing, what is its inflation, what is the rate of interest that is in the market, then what are the kind of portfolio investments coming into the country or going out of the country. It could be the government debt, it could be political stability inside the country, or it could be an international situation as well. All of these factors can influence the exchange rate. So there is no one factor that can be used to explain exchange rate, and all these factors are considered to understand the movement of the currency. Let's look at the price of a commodity. So we ask a question: what is the price of an American dollar? Like, what is the price of a unit of bread? So dollar is a commodity, and price is the rupee that we need to spend to buy $1. Now the question is, who demands dollars and who supplies dollars? From the earlier presentations, we understand the supply of dollar comes in when the USA, in this example, imports goods from India. So there is an supply of dollars, and the demand for dollars comes from India when we buy goods from the USA. The next is, what is the rate of exchange? Now the rate of exchange can be asked in this way: how much is $1 in terms of rupees? So if you exchange $1, how many rupees would we get? So $1 would give the current rate about 77.49, or some rupee will be getting. The other way to ask is, if we take 1 rupee, how many units of dollar can we get? Now the 1 unit of rupee will give us only 0.013 units of dollar. Since US currency is a stronger currency and US economy is a stronger economy, invariably we find out what is the rate of exchange of rupee in terms of a dollar. The price of dollar today is $1 equal to 77 point whatever rupees. Now a small change in that point, 49 to 59 to 63, these are very huge amount because the volume of transactions that take place in the world is very huge. But nevertheless, look at the balance of payments theory and explain it in the framework of the demand supply theory, which is more what we see happening around in the world today. We can explain the balance of payment theory in the demand supply framework, also known as the demand supply theory. And we are aware that a country can have a surplus balance of payment or an adverse balance of payment. Now, this framework, demand supply framework, is taken from your microeconomics theory, and it is the same way, except that the commodity and prices are different. In the demand curve to become D1. This shift in the demand curve for dollar can happen because of capital flows from the country. If the investors in the country would like to withdraw their capital here and make investment in USA, then they would demand more dollars, and therefore the demand for dollar will increase. The supply of dollar in the first diagram does not increase. Therefore, only the value of rupee, we'll have to pay more rupees to get. Earlier, we were paying one OR amount of rupee to get OQ units of dollar. Now we have to pay OR1 unit of rupee to get the increased demand for dollar. So, increased demand for dollar or at OQ2 can be purchased in the foreign exchange market only by offering OR2, the OR1 amount of rupee. Particular diagram, we can understand the exchange rate determination using the familiar demand supply framework. We can draw the diagram in several ways, we know that, but I have just put it in this format. So on the vertical axis I have put rupee, and on the horizontal axis I have put commodity, which is the dollar. Now, let us assume first that the demand for dollar comes from India because India wants to make payment to the US economy. So the green line in this first diagram indicates the demand for dollar by India. Why demand for dollar? India may require more dollar to make payments to US, or there might be investors from India who want to withdraw their funds and go and invest in the US. So the capital flow can be a major reason why foreign currencies are demanded. Now look at the supply side of dollar in India. The supply side of dollar is the blue upward moving supply curve, which is the supply of dollar in India. Now, since the demand for dollar has increased due to the capital flows, there's a shift in the demand curve from DD to D1. So the exchange rate fixes itself at a new price, which is at R1. Even at R1, there is an increased quantity demanded of the dollar simply because we need more dollars to make payments to that other country. Now, look at the US economy. In the US economy, there is a downward sloping demand curve for Indian rupee. So, the US economy also requires Indian rupee because they also buy goods from us, they also make investments in our country. So, that is the demand for the Indian rupee in USA. The upward sloping blue curve is the supply of Indian rupee in the USA. Now, what has happened in between the two diagrams is there is an excess supply of rupee in the USA. Why is there an excess supply of rupee in the USA? The excess supply of rupee in the USA has happened because we are demanding more and more of dollars, and to buy more and more dollars we have to supply more and more of rupees. So there is an increased supply of rupee in the USA, and there is an increased demand for dollar in India. So when the two economies are functioning, one is having a surplus in the balance of payment, the other is having a deficit in the balance of payment. This deficit and surplus in the balance of payment will result in changing in the exchange rate. The exchange rate can move up and down based on the demand and supply of the respective currencies, in which case we can say that the value of rupee is falling. You can see in the second diagram the exchange rate of rupee has fallen from E to E1 because there is too much of supply of rupee in the US economy, and the US economy does not require that much of dollar. They are not having a deficit with the balance of payment of India, they are having a surplus in the balance of payment of India. Therefore, they do not require so many rupees as we are supplying them in the market. So exchange rate of the rupee has come down to E1, and in the first diagram the exchange rate has gone up to R1. Now, when this movement of exchange rates have happened automatically because of price mechanism, then we call it as depreciation and appreciation of currency. Depreciation can be explained with the help of an example here, which is happening actually in real time. Now we are experiencing the dollar value increasing vis-a-vis the Indian rupee. Now, what we are seeing here is the Indian rupee is depreciating in terms of the dollar. Earlier, $1 could be purchased for 75 rupees. Now, the same $1 worth of good can be purchased only for 77.50 rupees, which means any importer of commodities from USA will have to pay 2 rupees 50 paise more to buy $1 worth of commodities. On the other hand, the US economy will experience a different situation where the Americans will find that for every dollar they were getting earlier 75 worth of goods, now for every dollar that they are importing goods, they will get 77.50 worth of goods. So in long run, this should be helpful to increase the exports from India to the USA, because USA will find that it can get more goods for the same price than it was getting earlier. The other thing that we need to know is when one currency appreciates, automatically the other currency will depreciate. The reason is the currencies are related to each other and they are sold in pairs. So when there is an appreciation of one currency, when the dollar appreciates, automatically the rupee must depreciate. Now, because the number has gone up to 77.5, it should not be understood that the value of rupee has increased. The value of rupee has decreased because we were paying 75 earlier, we are now paying 77. It shows a decrease in the value of rupee, not increase in the value of rupee, because we are paying more to buy a dollar worth of goods than what we were purchasing earlier. Called devaluation and revaluation of currency. In the case of devaluation of a currency, the currency value is automatically reduced by the government itself and not by the market mechanism. This is done to correct the persistent balance of payment difficulty that the country may face. So when the government forcefully reduces the value of a currency, it increases the export from the it encourages export from the country. It does the same work as depreciation. Exports will become cheaper to the country and imports will become costlier into the country. So that in course of time is expected to correct the deficit in the balance of payment. There is one more term called the revaluation of currency. No country should have a continuous surplus in the balance of payment. That is also not good because other countries will not buy goods from that country. So, in such cases, what the country's government may do is revalue the country or refix the currency value so that the value is not too high for others not to buy goods from that country. Now, India has had experience of devaluation. Once in 1949, India devalued her currency when the pound was devalued. Then in 1966 also Indian currency was devalued because we had to fight a war and we had drought and then we had adverse balance of payment. The last of this devaluation happened in 1991. Devalued the currency by 18%, making the Indian goods cheaper in the international market, making the imports into the country costlier, and thereby the country opted for the liberalization, privatization, and globalization policy. With that, we have corrected a part of this problem that was to us in the early 1990s. Look at the for exchange rate policy. The first exchange rate policy we can look at is the fixed exchange rate. In the case of fixed exchange rate, why do governments want to fix the exchange rate of Indian rupee with a dollar? Why do they want to keep it pegged at that rate? So pegging a currency with another currency is to prevent this volatility in exchange rate. It gives some element of certainty to the trade that happens between the countries, and it also does not result in too much of disturbance of capital from one country to the other. However, this exchange rate being pegged to another country is done by the government by selling and buying currencies in the market. If any currency is in short supply in the market, the government will sell currency at a fixed rate in the exchange market so that the users of currency will get the required amount of currency at a given rate. Similarly, when there is too much of currency of the currency in the market, then the government may use its reserve and purchase the extra currency from the market so that the rupee value does not fall below that. So the both the demand forces and the supply forces are manipulated by the government or calibrated by the central bank to maintain the exchange rate between two currencies. Now, and this is complex because the government, the central bank, has to be continuously monitoring it and continuously be in the action of correcting the exchange rate, unlike the other rate that we had just explained. Now, India has got a India's foreign exchange has declined now. We had a foreign exchange, large foreign exchange. It has declined by 1.7 billion. So this happened, but we need to have this large foreign exchange reserve. Unless we have a large foreign exchange reserve, this fixed rate of system does not work. Most countries are not on fixed exchange rate. They operate with uh, a flexible exchange. So we have also the second type of exchange rate called the fluctuating exchange rate or flexible exchange rate. So there is no government intervention in the market mechanism like the one price mechanism what we said. It will happen automatically in the market. So this is called as a fluctuating exchange rate. So fluctuating exchange rate will have market forces determining, but it creates a lot of uncertainty. So right now we are seeing so many countries in the world are experiencing adverse balance of payment and they are having crisis. Sri Lanka has already had the crisis. So these kind of things are bound to happen when countries are operating under fluctuating exchange rate. Adjustable and crawling or trotting peg. In this particular case, what happens is the exchange rate is fixed in a band. So that means the Indian rupee can go up to 75. 75 is the equilibrium rate. It can go up to 10% above 75. It can go 10% below 75. Beyond 10%, either way, up or down, then the government will come in to correct that particular situation. So, and if the country finds that there is a persistent movement of the currency either up or down, then the country may opt in for devaluation or revaluation of the currency. The term that is popular in foreign exchange markets to study, this is called the convertibility of currency. Now, convertibility of currency means the freedom with which we can convert a domestic currency into a foreign currency. Now, this is expected to be done at the market rate. So, not all countries allow convertibility of their currency into another currency. This higher the convertibility rate, then that currency is more liquid. So, convertibility is a feature of the flexible exchange rate system that I just explained. So, when countries' currencies are flexible, then it is possible to have convertibility of their currency. Let us see how convertibility has taken place in two forms, in the current account convertibility and the capital account convertibility. So in the current account convertibility, it means that the trade, if somebody has to travel abroad or somebody wants to come into the country, then they want foreign exchange that can be easily purchased from the market. That is called the current account convertibility. See, convertibility is there is a full freedom to convert the national currency into another currency, into any other currency at the existing market rate. This is done by students going abroad or tourists coming into India. In all these cases, there is a freedom to convert the currency, convert the domestic currency into the other. This is whether the country is competitive or not. If it is competitive, there is no fear of converting one currency into the other currency. The second one is capital account convertibility. Capital account convertibility relates to the economic ability of the country to attract foreign capital. Now, this includes all kinds of investments that are made into the country, like shares and debts and property and even corporate assets and foreign direct investment. So, whether the country is allowing foreigners to make these investments in the country freely or whether Indians can sell their property, their shares, or their investments here, and can they take the value to their other country. That is only in the case of assets, and that is called as capital account convertibility. So fully convertible currency would mean that the foreign currency can be used for all kinds of transactions, but that is not true for all countries. All countries do not follow full convertibility. For example, India, we can look at Indian rupee and understand what its current position regarding convertibility. In 1992, the country allowed for exchange rate conversion in the current account up to a certain amount. So 60% of all accounts in the current account can be converted at the market rate, and 40% will have to be surrendered to the government, and for which the central bank will give an equivalent amount of rupee. So that means the foreign currencies that one would bring, if the currencies would come in, for 60% you can exchange it in the market rate, and 40% you can exchange rate only with the central bank at the government determined rate. But after 93, 94, the country decided to have full convertibility in the current account. So today there are no restrictions on convertibility on current account. India is competitive in the international market, and currencies, even if they bring them by a tour or for some reason they come into the country in a legal format, then that currency can be exchanged for the domestic currency. The partial convertibility story and that of India's current capital account. Indian capital account is not fully convertible, it is partly convertible. Then a committee was set up in 1997 called the Tarapur Committee, which was to look at the readiness of the country to have full convertibility of its currency. So three preconditions are necessary. There has to be fiscal consolidation. There has to be a mandated target for inflation and the strengthening of the financial system. Only when these three systems are under control can the country go in for full convertibility. India is still not ready for that, and we are still in the partial convertibility. There are many countries, including China, which is on partial convertibility of their currency. So the ceilings are imposed by the government. Currencies cannot be brought into the country without the government's permission, nor can currencies leave the country without the government permission if they are related to assets. So rupees can be exchanged at market rate in certain cases, but approval has to be required for larger amounts that has to be done. So hopefully this exchange rate topic is clear to you, and they are complicated. So I have tried to keep it as simple as possible. Please do share it with your friends, and if you watched it till the end, thank you very much for watching till the end, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you.